Hi again. I guess it's a 2 video day today, so you get 2 of them. Well, I posted one last night, but I actually made the link private because I think that the language is, while accurate, too inflammatory for a lot of people to hear. So I may keep that one up and pop it under for on Patreon. You know, if you go to www.patreon.com and you search for The Angry Healer, I'll come up and you can support my Patreon page. And if you do that, I'm going to give you special access to that link. So if you do end up supporting me on Patreon, which means that you decide to donate to these videos to keep them going, if you like this content and you decide to donate to Patreon, I will open up private videos for you that I don't allow anyone else to see. And the reason that I'm keeping these hidden is that I think that they're just too sensitive for the mass population, as far as I'm willing to go and making myself vulnerable to the world. So, but if you decide to support me on Patreon, I will give you private access to these links, these additional YouTube videos, so you can see more of my thinking, more of my private life, more of how to make it in the world, and you know, be prepared. You know, it'll be interesting. But I wanted to kind of, there's a really great video that's currently under private that you can receive if you sign up for Patreon and support me. But I wanted to give you kind of a nutshell of it too, because I think this is important enough that I'm going to have to find a way to speak about this without being inflammatory. And I try to be as delicate as possible when it comes to some of these matters, because look, I very much understand what kind of harm can be caused in the world by a few errant words. And I very much understand the pain that people go through because of the words of other people. Okay, I fully get it. Come from a background of abuse. So I've picked apart a lot of things my whole life to try to figure out why in the world that I felt so bad. And it turned out there was a lot of things that were said to me that were really awful and made me feel bad. So there you go. So I try to be kind and considerate about things like that. But there's still some things we need to talk about. We can't just you know, sweep everything under the rug and not. We need to talk about some things that are really important. And so I'll give you the background. I was talking to a friend the other day about diversity, and this friend happens to be a communist and very pro-diversity. And so I said to him, I said, well, where do you live currently? And he said, well, I live basically among a lot of older folks, and there's not a lot of noise around me. And I said, oh, really? So you don't hear stereos or have gunshots or anything? Because I live in a neighborhood of high diversity where it's not just an old folks, you know, area. I'm talking like when you look me up on that map, there's this map where they took all the census data and they mapped it according to what color people were. And they put little dots on the map. I live in an area on the map that's like perfectly blended between black, white, Hispanic, Asian. Like white people are like 50% and everybody else also makes 50%. So there's a really good chunk of the population of where I am that is not culturally white. And I have a lot of stuff that happens around my house. I've had murders, house fires, car fires, guns being shot off under my window, bottles being broken in my parking lot. I've actually watched people shit in our parking lot who weren't from the place that I immediately live, but were from the greater neighborhood in the area that's very multicultural. I mean, dude, I've seen some really fucked up shit in this area, and that's part of the reason that I'm moving, is because this isn't safe. There's nothing safe about having broken bottles in the parking lot and needing to walk over them, you know, trying to take your dog out for a walk and you're walking over broken bottles. That's not safe. It's not safe. So I just wanted to point out that what I find so hilarious is that I know a lot of people who are very liberal who say diversity, diversity, diversity. Then the minute that they have to live among this, oh, does their tune change? You know, even talking to this friend of mine, it was like, I said, well, you know what I put up with, blah, 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 blah. And he's like rolling his eyes like, oh my God, I wouldn't want to be involved in that. And he's saying things like, wow, that would really piss me off and stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah. This is what you guys are fighting for. You're fighting to be further annoyed and possibly harmed by dangerous people. That's what you're fighting for. You don't know. You have to understand, and this is the other thing that these same people don't understand, is that some groups of people suffer from lower ability to make good choices and lower IQs and smaller frontal lobes than other people. Generally, that has to do with how you were raised. For example, people who are incarcerated show a very high rate of having smaller frontal lobes than the mass of regular people. The frontal lobe is responsible for decision-making and social control. It's responsible for you making informed decisions that consider safety and needs of others. If you have a small frontal lobe, that means that you historically will probably have difficulty in making these types of decisions, and then therefore you could make bad decisions that land you in jail. So you have to understand that there is biology that is working in these areas. Our historically white culture that I am a part of, and these people, these liberals that I'm talking of, are also a part of, have been blessed for centuries with good nutrition and excellent parenting, and as well proper moral values that have been put into place by Christian and other systems. What you get with other cultures is you get people who have not had generations of good nutrition. They have not had good parenting historically. They have not made good decisions. And you have to understand that this is going to lead to the disparity, the division you see in the present between groups who have historically had good upbringings and those who historically have not. It's not that difficult of a concept, I don't think. But until I was no longer a liberal, I was not willing to even entertain this concept. I was not even willing to look at it because I was told by multiculturalism that I was supposed to respect people of all nations, colors, and creeds, which is true. I am supposed to respect everyone, but I am also tasked with protecting myself and my family and recognizing differences so that I can endeavor to keep my family safe. Because when I recognize a culture that has a tendency to just shoot off guns wherever they please, we're not talking about responsible rural folks that the liberals might point to. Well, look at those rednecks with their guns. Dude, look, they've had safety training. The ones that I know, as I know a lot of rural folk too, they've had safety training. They've gone through classes. They are responsible owners. They pay their taxes. They go to work. They treat their children right, etc. Okay, let's contrast that with gun owners in an urban environment and not from a rural setting. What you see is illegal firearms, no training, no concern for other people's safety. I watched children and young adults in the park next to me take guns and shoot them in the air for fun in the park, around children, around other people, around dogs, and it's just insane. You know, we're not talking about a population of people who's had gun training and education. We're talking about a population of people who is using these things recklessly. There's a huge difference, and it has to do with it has to do with the kind of decisions you make. Let's not talk about like, oh, because both groups have guns, they're equally. No. One group has training, one group does not. That's a huge difference. So, I guess my point was, you need to come to where the diversity is, and you need to look at it, and you need to be with it, and you need to live in it to see what's really going on. You need to confront it, and you need to have it in your face, and you need to realize, well, you don't need to realize, but what you will realize is that when you're face to face with other cultures in this manner, they are not going to respect you the way that you are respecting them. And in fact, they see your respect of them in this manner, because they know they don't deserve it, as weak. So they see you as weak for your constant overarching helicopter parenting respect that you give to groups of people who don't behave properly. You know you're only condoning bad behavior when you do that. It's like a parent who has a child who is behaving badly and having a temper tantrum, and instead of addressing the temper tantrum and helping the child to get their emotions under control, the parent feeds the tantrum. And every time the child acts out, the parent makes it worse and eggs the child on and gives the child whatever they want so that they'll stop having the tantrum. Well, the next time they know to go ahead and have a tantrum so that they get what they want. This is all you're doing. This is poor parenting. You are parenting these people of other cultures poorly if you are not addressing them and letting them know that this behavior is unacceptable. And that's why liberalism is scary, because I don't see a place. Let me know. But liberalism doesn't find a place where enough is enough. When is enough enough? When are we done putting up with behavior that's abusive or scary or dangerous? Like, when is enough enough? And liberalism never reaches that. There's no off valve with liberalism, because it constantly teaches you that whatever you want to do is okay, because especially if you're a different culture, we just don't understand you, and we're just going to let you be the way that you want. No, what you're allowing to happen is for people to just engage in terrible behavior that's disruptive to our nation. To our nation, to the people here, to the individual lives of the people just going about their business. And really, we need to start calling this behavior when we see it. It's time. It's time for us to stand up and say, this isn't right. You're abusing me. You're abusing my friends, and I'm not going to put up with this any longer.